Have you ever pondered how a single man could manipulate an entire nation into committing atrocities that would darken the pages of history? It's a question that has confounded many, a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. How did Adolf Hitler rise to power, and how did Nazism take root in Germany? These questions, while complex, are not unanswerable. They require a deep dive into the annals of history. This video will delve into the historical events that led to the ascent of Adolf Hitler and the birth of Nazism. To understand the rise of Hitler and Nazism, we must first venture back to the aftermath of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in June of 1919, ended the war, but marked the beginning of Germany's economic hardship. The treaty imposed severe reparations on Germany, leaving the country economically crippled and its people resentful. This resentment was further exacerbated by the political instability during the Weimar Republic era. The Republic, formed in the wake of the Kaiser's abdication, was a democratic experiment that struggled to take root. It was plagued by hyperinflation, political violence, and a lack of public faith. The German people, grappling with economic hardship and political disillusionment, were ripe for manipulation. Their desperation for stability and their resentment towards the Treaty of Versailles made them susceptible to the promises of radical ideologies. This tumultuous period created a fertile ground for the rise of extremist ideologies, including Nazism. In the midst of this chaos, a young Austrian man named Adolf Hitler saw an opportunity to seize power. Born in the late 19th century, Hitler had a troubled early life, marred by a strained relationship with his father, and a deep affection for his mother. His passion for art, rejected by his father, was consistently overshadowed by a growing interest in politics and nationalism. When the First World War broke out, Hitler enlisted in the German army. The years in the trenches shaped his worldview, intensifying his nationalism and introducing him to the bitter taste of defeat. It was during this time that he perfected the art of propaganda, understanding the power of manipulating public opinion. After the war, Hitler joined the fledgling German Workers' Party. Possessing a charismatic personality and a knack for public speaking, Hitler quickly climbed the ranks. He transformed the party into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party, as it came to be known. Hitler's speeches, filled with fiery rhetoric and promises of a resurgent Germany, began to attract large crowds. His propaganda tactics, coupled with a deep understanding of the public sentiment, made him a popular figure. He exploited the disillusionment and resentment felt by many Germans following their defeat in World War I, and the harsh penalties imposed by the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler's persuasive rhetoric and promises of a better future began to resonate with the disillusioned German populace. With a growing following, Hitler set his sights on the highest office in Germany. Our story takes us to the year 1923, to a beer hall in Munich, where Hitler, along with other Nazi party leaders, attempted a coup, known as the Beer Hall Putsch. This ill-fated attempt to seize power ended in failure and resulted in Hitler's arrest. But this was far from the end of his political ambitions. While in prison, Hitler penned his manifesto, Mein Kampf, or My Struggle. This text laid out his vision for a racially pure Germany and his plans to achieve it. It would become the ideological backbone of the Nazi Party and a blueprint for Hitler's rise to power. Upon his release from prison, Hitler began to rebuild the Nazi Party, capitalizing on public discontent with the Weimar Republic and exploiting fears of a communist uprising. His charisma and powerful oratory skills drew in the masses, and his message resonated with a Germany desperate for a strong leader. In 1933, Hitler's political maneuvering paid off as he was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Though he was not yet a dictator, this was a significant step on the road to absolute power. The turning point came with the Reichstag fire. The burning of the German parliament building was blamed on the communists, providing Hitler with the perfect pretext to consolidate his grip on power. With the nation in a state of emergency, Hitler persuaded the Reichstag to pass the Enabling Act, granting him the power to enact laws without parliamentary approval. The Enabling Act was the final piece of the puzzle. With it, Hitler dismantled the democratic institutions of the Weimar Republic, replacing them with a one-party totalitarian state under his control. The road to power was complete. In a few short years, Hitler had maneuvered himself from a political agitator to the totalitarian ruler of Germany. With Hitler at the helm, the terrifying ideology of Nazism took hold. The principles of Nazism were underpinned by a potent cocktail of nationalism, racial purity, and anti-Semitism, all of which were amplified by a relentless propaganda machine. Nazism was more than just a political ideology, it was a worldview that painted the Aryan race as superior, and all others as inferior. This twisted notion of Aryan supremacy was rooted in a distorted interpretation of scientific theories of the time, which were manipulated to justify their belief in racial hierarchy. The Nazis propagated the idea that Aryans were the master race, destined to rule over others. Anti-Semitism, an age-old prejudice, was central to Nazi ideology. Hitler and his followers blamed Jews for Germany's defeat in World War I and the subsequent economic hardships. They painted Jews as the enemy, the other, systematically dehumanizing them in the public eye. This dehumanization was not just rhetorical. It was codified in the Nuremberg Laws of 1935, which stripped German Jews of their citizenship and prohibited marriages between Jews and non-Jewish Germans. These laws marked the beginning of state-sanctioned persecution of Jews, a horrifying reality that would only deepen in the years to come. The propaganda machine played a crucial role in spreading these ideas. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's Minister of Propaganda, controlled all forms of communication in Germany: newspapers, radio, film, literature, theater, and the arts. He understood the power of repetition, emotion, and simplicity in messaging. Through this controlled narrative, the Nazis were able to instill their ideology into the hearts and minds of the German people and beyond. Nazism was not born overnight. It was the result of a complex interplay of historical, social, and political factors. Hitler and his followers exploited these factors to their advantage, manipulating public sentiment and paving the way for their heinous agenda. Thus, under the shadow of Hitler's rule, Nazism firmly planted its roots, setting the stage for the horrors that were to come. The rise of Hitler and Nazism was not an overnight event. It was a tangle of political, economic, and social factors, from the aftermath of World War I to Hitler's cunning emergence and ruthless road to power. By understanding history, we can strive to prevent such dark chapters from recurring. The echoes of the past serve as a warning for the future.